Hey everyone, this is Ashley with CTandRina Digitals. I'm going to do a quick tutorial to show you how to use my new Floral Branch Overlays in Photoshop. These are super simple to use because they are transparent PNG files. A couple ways you can overlay them on your image. You can open the overlay in Photoshop and you can just select all, edit, copy, and edit or paste into your image. And then just resize and move around however you would want them. Also, another way to do it to easily switch between to see which one maybe works the best with your image, you can go up to File and Place Embedded, and you can go through a couple different overlays to see, and that's going to put it right over your image, and you can go ahead and resize and then just click the check mark, and then you can come over here and right click, go up to replace contents, and then you can easily just switch between different overlays. You may need to resize again depending, but I am going to use a different one. With this one, I think I want a white color. Now some of them already have blur applied to them. Other ones have a little bit of blur. They are supposed to be like this. They are overlaid on the photo, so your subject is the main focus. Now if I use this one specifically for this image, the overlay's pretty bright over here, so you can play around with all kinds of settings on these. I would go over to curves and add some adjustment layers just to try to get them to match my photo a little bit more. Press this button right here to clip it to the overlay, so I'm only working on that. I could do that, or I could bring down the brightness a little bit on them. You can also create a layer above that, or above it. Make sure that there's a clipping mask that's already on there, but if there wasn't, you would just right click and create clipping mask. On multiply blending mode, grab a soft brush at about 15% opacity, just grab a darker tan on the image, and then just paint it over real quick, just to give it a little bit to blend it into the image a little bit more. Another thing that you could do, which I don't think I'm going to do it on this image, I'm going to do it on another one, but that's different ways to apply it. I have another image open here that I want to use. I want to use a red, so I'm going to go up to File. Oops, I don't know what I just did. I opened something and I want to open. Up to File and Place Embedded. And I have a couple of different red ones that are already ready for red. I'm going to go ahead and resize and press my check mark. So now I want to try to get the florals to match the dress. So I'm going to mess around with my different adjustment layers and try to get that to happen. So I'm going to first go to my curves, and don't forget to create that clipping mask. I'm going to drag it down to make it a little bit darker. And then I'm going to click back on my overlay. I'm going to add a hue saturation layer. I'm going to desaturate the red a little bit because I don't want a very bright red. And then you can play with the hue a little bit. I think I'm going to go back into that. I went the wrong way, I think. There we go. And it might take a little while to kind of get it where you want it. I'm going to bring down the brightness just a little bit. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. Now I kind of don't want like these in focus ones in here. You can create a layer mask and you can brush off certain parts of the overlay that you don't want. Or if you're just wanting it to be an all blurry layer, which looks really pretty a lot of the time for overlays, you can simply just click on the overlay, go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and add blur to the whole, to all of the florals. Now, if you add a lot of blur, make sure to add noise because it can create banding in the flowers. So say, okay, you don't want to blur these ones anymore, but you just want to blur these ones. You can, I'm going to go ahead and merge these ones with my overlay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate my overlay. And then I'm going to add my blur to these florals. I'm going to hide this one real quick. Go back. I'm going to hide this layer so I can tell how much blur I'm adding to those ones. It's good. And then I will bring this one back up. I will create a layer mask on this bottom one. And then I'm going to go ahead and just brush off the florals from the initial layer there. And that's an option if you want to blur the entire thing. If you want, which you really shouldn't have to, lower the opacity because then they're not really going to look real. You can also use a hue and adjustment layer to change the color if you wanted to. Some of them may not work because like if they have leaves on them, it's going to change the green too. So make sure that instead of just like dragging the hue slider, if you're wanting to change like the red specifically, make sure you put red in up in here, and then it'll just affect your reds. If I wanted to make them pink or make them a purple or a blue, you can mess around with that too. The ones that aren't leaves are going to be a little bit easier to change the color because you won't have to worry about it. For instance, get rid of these ones, do a different one. File, place embedded. One of the ones without leaves is this one, and I do have it in a few different colors with different arrangements. You can add hue saturation to this one, and you can change it to, there's a green, and you would have to desaturate that, but it could be like a pretty light green color, or a purple, or a pink, or a blue. There's a lot of different options with these. If you wanted to get creative with adding different overlays, like say, okay, so I already added these ones, I'm going to go ahead and merge all these layers together. You could add a completely different overlay, because some of the ones I made do have the same florals, they're just in different arrangements. Like these ones are similar. You could add this overlay too, and I would bring down the curves on that just like I did the other one and edit it just the same. But you can combine overlays, that works too. There's a bunch of, there's numerous different ways you can use them and get creative if you want. Say like I did, obviously this isn't really going to match, but this is the one that I already did that was multicolor. If you wanted a different, some bigger florals, I'm going to lose my proportions here for a second. Say something like this, but maybe in a different color or using a different image for this color. That could be a completely different overlay, and you can add blur to that to make it as if you're peeking through the branches. This one would be trickier to change the hue because of the leaves on some of them, but you can mess around with it. You can also, like if you really want to change the color of them and it changes the color of the leaves, you can simply just come over to your layer mask on your hue saturation layer and use a small black brush at 100% opacity and just brush it off of the leaves so the green comes back. That's an option too. It just can be a little tedious depending on how many images you're doing it to. But yeah, obviously those florals don't really match that digital. But so I think I kind of went over everything. There's a lot of different options in here. They're really pretty. I tried to do different depth of fields and different colors, but you could, if you edit in Photoshop, you can pretty much change any of it. This is an orange one that I could probably change to red easily. Just do a little bit of messing around with to get it how I want it. There we go. And it might take a little while to get to match perfectly, but it's worth it because these overlays are really, really pretty. Add a little bit more blur. I don't want to add too much. There. So that was a completely different orange one before that I made match for that image. I would love for you to join my group on Facebook. It is linked in the description.